A very good morning to you. Welcome to AM Live this Monday. My name is Olive Burrows, and this morning we delve into healthcare matters. We are asking, where does it hurt? With me in studio, we'll have unionists who have taken issue with several things, including late pay and the reorganization in the Ministry of Health. But we get into that after these top stories. And the scenes of horror continue in Kilifi County as the number of bodies of those who died from activities of a religious cult rises. This comes after 18 bodies were exhumed Sunday from a mass grave site. Homicide detectives revealed that tens of the dead were stuffed inside single graves in a rush to conceal the evidence of the deadly fast. NTV's Kevin Mutai from Shakahola now reports that the Ministry of Interior and National Administration has sealed off the entire 800-acre piece of land and declared it a crime scene.
The cloud of horror continues to hang over Shakahola in the vast Chakama forest in the county of Kilifi. So far, 39 bodies have been exhumed since the exercise began 3 days ago, with 18 bodies recovered at a mass grave on Sunday. Out of the 7 graves dug out Sunday, one contained 5 bodies and 3 others with 3 bodies each, as detectives report that there are more than 20 separate graves within the small piece of land. The number of bodies have now exceeded the capacity at the Malindi Sub-County Hospital mortuary, with reports that some might be moved to the neighboring counties for preservation ahead of the post-mortem examination.
Kulikuwa kuna zaidi ya watu 600. Kulingana na ile ripoti ambayo tulikuwa tuko nayo.
Iwapo wewe kama mzazi uko tayari mtoto wako aweze kufariki, akaenda njaa mpaka afariki, ni jambo la kusikitisha sana. Ikiwa wanaume wanaruhusiwa kuacha kwanza wamalizike watoto na wanawake, hilo pia ni jambo la kusikitisha. We are far much ahead of that.
Preliminary findings from the forensic analysis also revealed that some of the bodies were still fresh, indicating that the victims might have been executed before concluding their fast. Some of the tools used in burying the dead are still on site, indicating that those behind the crime could still be in the area.
The scenes here are extremely traumatic. You know, we are digging up graves of families, of children, of women, you know, and everyone is psychologically affected. As you can see, the stench is all over. You know, people are shocked by what they see. So we need urgent psychosocial support for the officers who are conducting the exhumation, for the police officers, for the journalists who are covering this story, you know, the first responders. The situation is extremely traumatic, and that is why we are also appealing to the government to send down urgently counselors who can continuously keep monitoring the situation.
It is from this village where a woman was also rescued alive in the forest. A total of 3 people were saved and rushed to hospital for treatment.
Government itoe appeal kwamba tuko tayari kuwanusuru na kuweza kuwapatia any support. Jitokezeni na tutawasaidia, ili wasione kuwa watakapojitokeza basi watachukuliwa hatua. Kwa hivyo watakapojua kuwa sisi we are innocent and we are victims rather than we are criminals, itawapatia wao ari ya kuweza kutoka na kujitokeza waweze kunusurika.
Now, the Ministry of Interior and National Administration has taken action on the unfolding events. The Cabinet Secretary, Kithure Kindiki, in a statement said, and I quote, "Shakahola Forest Massacre is the clearest abuse of the constitutionally enshrined human right freedom of worship." It further read, "This horrendous blight over conscience must lead not only to the most severe punishment of the perpetrator of the atrocity on so many innocent souls, but tighter regulation on every church, mosque, temple, or synagogue going forward." End of quote. Kindiki has ordered for deployment of multi-agency security team to comb the entire 800-acre piece of land, seal off the forest, and declare it a scene of crime. Families are still looking for their loved ones, among them Rashid Makoha from Mumias, who claims her sister and her 4 children who traveled to Malindi to join the controversial preacher Paul Mackenzie are still missing.
Dadanga alikuja huku mwezi wa kwanza Januari, akaniambia anakuja kupewa shamba na ataishi maisha mazuri huku peke yake huku. So kutoka hiyo siku hajaongea naye.
Ijulikane ya kwamba hao watu brainwash kwa sababu ile itikadi ambayo, yani mafunzo ambayo anawapatia na anashawishi hao wakina mama sana zaidi, kwa sababu wengi ambao wako hapa ni wakina mama ambao wako hapa ndani.
Top government officials are expected to visit the scenes tomorrow, with a command center being established in the area to allow for deployment of more officers to conduct such a rescue operation, even as exhumation of bodies continues. Kevin Mutai, NTV in Chakama, Kilifi County.
Deeply troubling, and staying on that story, it is now emerging that followers of cult leader Paul Mackenzie, who starved to death, were regular shoppers at the Shakahola Trading Center between the years 2020 and 2021. But their presence started fading away, raising alarm among the locals who could not access the settlement due to a gang within the cult that protected the territory. The traders say they knew little about them and that the cult members hated being questioned on the happenings of the Chakama ranch. NTV's Melito Letengez with more.
15 kilometers from the exhumation site in Chakama Ranch is the Shakahola Trading Center. It is said that Mackenzie approached elders here wanting to acquire a piece of land to farm in 2020. The very land that homicide detectives have exhumed 39 bodies so far, indicating that exhumation could be far from over.
Akakarabishwa na wazee wa Shakahola hapa, akaonyeshwa hiyo sehemu ya pori ambapo saa hii ni kama kwa Mackenzie.
The elders became suspicious of what Mackenzie was doing on his piece of land, as hundreds of new faces were noticeable in the trading center from time to time and would retreat to the forest.
Walikuja peke yake, muda mfupi kukawa kumejaa watu wengi sana. Na walipokuja walikuwa na afya zao, muda si muda wakawa wamekonda. Tukiuliza tunasikia ni shida ya chakula. Muda si muda tumeanza kuona watoto wakija kwangu mimi nyumbani kwa mzee wa kijiji, na wakisema sisi tunakufa njaa kule, tunalazimishwa kufunga, na ukikosa kufunga huo unapigwa na fimbo. Hata ukafanya mchezo unaweza ukauawa.
Business was booming at the shopping center. They would come by to buy cereals and they would receive money from their relatives, whom they would lie to that they are doing business in Voi or Mombasa. Their visits to the shopping center reduced and locals began to notice a decline in the number of shoppers.
Kwanza wale watoto tuliwakosa, walikuwa wao mama walikuwa wanakuja na watoto sana. Baadaye tulikuja tukawakosa watoto, kawa ni wamama wanakuja. Hao mama naye sasa wakapungua, sasa wakawa hawakuji vile walikuwa wanakuja. Maana walikuwa wanakuja wengi sana, wanashikana in groups. Watembei mmoja mmoja.
Mimi niliulizia, kumbe sasa pale ndani hawakai kama vile venye wanakaa kwa kambi. Unakuta pale mahali kunaitwa Jerusalem, kwingine hata unasikia unatafuta nani, nafuta kwa mfano na mtafuta Kioko. Natafuta Kioko, naambia Kioko anaka Kitui.
With speculation rife among the villagers that there was an illegal activity going on the expansive piece of land, they embarked on a discovery mission, but they could not access the area. They were blocked by Mackenzie's followers.
Kitu cha kwanza unaenda mpaka hata ile barabara yenye utakaopitia, inaenda mpaka inafika mwisho. Haujui ni mbinu gani wanatumia mpaka wanaziba zile barabara. Unatafuta njia ya kuingia mji ndio huu unaona, lakini kufika pale yenyewe ni kazi.
Ilibidi tukashikana na gengi na vijana wangu kutoka Shakahola mpaka wakachomewa pikipiki hapo kwa lami. Manake tunataka kujua kuna nini. Vijana wangu walichomewa pikipiki mbili hapo, na hao jamaa walitufukuza na panga.
The grim discovery of decomposed bodies in shallow graves in Chakama has shocked the country, many calling on the country to introduce laws to identify and terminate cults in the society.
Naweza kuanzisha kanisa, lakini sasa ile tamaa ikiniingia, sasa kuna vitu vingine nitaingiza tofauti na Mungu. Naona sasa, so nafikiri regulation ya hizi madhehebu itakuwa vizuri, si kwamba mtu ni pastor tu ama ni imam lakini ameamka tu na hajulikani pale popote.
Nyumba 10 walikuwa wapi? Because the reason we have nyumba 10 ni kwamba mtu mmoja akipotea kwa hizo nyumba 10 tunajua.
The inaccessibility of the ranch is among the reasons highlighted for little information on what has been going on inside the forest, even as homicide detectives indicate that there could be more bodies undiscovered in the shallow grave that they have mapped. Melita Olitinges, NTV.
In more uplifting news, Kenya's Kelvin Kiptum set a new course record at the London Marathon, clocking 2 hours, 1 minute and 25 seconds in a scintillating finish in the London Marathon on Sunday. The 23-year-old was seconds away from also breaking the men's marathon record and is now ranked the second fastest marathoner in the world. In the women's race, Perez Jepchirchir finished third in a race that was won by surprise package Sifan Hassan from the Netherlands. Hilary Aneke recaps a memorable outing for Kenyan athletes in the streets of London.
What a man. This is his second ever marathon.
At just 23 years old, Kenya's Kelvin Kiptum has caused ripples in the marathon world after he shattered the London Marathon course record, winning this year's race in 2 hours, 1 minute and 25 seconds. Kiptum, who debuted in Valencia in December last year, where he finished in 2 hours, 1 minute and 53 seconds, the third fastest time in history, is now being touted as Eliud Kipchoge's heir apparent. Kiptum missed the world record by 16 seconds and is now the second fastest man in marathon history. Kipchoge's world record time stands at 2 hours, 1 minute and 9 seconds.
My plan was to catch a water, but I missed. Unfortunately, I missed. I said, let me make a move, I try. Yeah. The secret is training. I've been training a lot. Yeah. Everything is good. My training, very okay. I love the crowd cheering. That gives me a lot of motivation. I keep on pushing.
However, Kiptum is modest about toppling compatriot Eliud Kipchoge, who flagged off the men's race in London as the world's fastest marathon runner.
For the world record, maybe I can go home, then I see, but for now, not yet.
Kenya's Geoffrey Kamworor kicked off his London debut, coming in a distant second, clocking 2 hours, 4 minutes and 23 seconds.
The race was good. I'm happy that I've run good again. I've come back after a long time struggle with injuries. So I feel great. London is great. The course was amazing. The cheering was good. To me, I can say I'm really happy to debut in London and to come into podium place.
In the women's race, Dutch Sifan Hassan produced a surprise finish, beating arguably the greatest women's field ever assembled to win the women's race in 2 hours, 18 minutes and 33 seconds. Her victory was secured in the home stretch when she outsprinted Kenya's Jepchirchir and Ethiopia's Alemu Megetu. Sifan, who was making a marathon debut, had been fasting during Ramadan.
Of London, 2:18:33, shock all over her face. What a performance and what a day.
I have no word for. I thought I would stop like in 15 kilometer 20 because my leg was bothering me. I had like a week ago and something like I think hip problem or something. My left legs and it was bother me, and I told my physio yesterday I want to tape before and I forget this morning, and I'm not about winning. It really feel like nightmare, like a dream or something.
Olympic marathon champion Perez Jepchirchir, who was on the cusp of victory, settled for third as her momentum waned within 2 kilometers to go.
In 40 kilometers I feel a lot of fatigue, so I knew I'm not going to win, because I feel my body in 40 kilometers not moving anymore.
Pre-race favourite Bridget Kosgei, who is the women's marathon record holder, limped out 3 minutes into the race after appearing to be in some discomfort. Hilary Aneke, NTV, Nairobi.
Can't be easy. Kenyans will now be contributing 3% of their income to the housing fund. President William Ruto has said the employers will also complement the employees' contribution as a way of ensuring Kenyans can access affordable housing. NTV's Brian Mushiri with more details.
Speaking at a church service at Friends Church Quakers Dawn Home in Nairobi, President William Ruto emphasized the need of acquiring decent housing through the strengthening of the housing fund. To this end, the president announced measures that will require income earners, both in government and private sectors, to dig deeper into their pockets.
Kila mfanyikazi wa serikali ambaye atatoa sehemu ya mshahara yake 3% kwa mambo ya housing, na sisi kama serikali tutampatia 3% every month ya salary yake, so that we can create a fund that will assist the people of Kenya to acquire homes.
Civil servants will kick off the process, with the government intending to match their contributions. The president also lauded the government's plan of increasing members' contributions to the National Social Security Fund (NSSF), saying it helped the country increase its savings.
Mimi nimefurahi kwamba ile sheria ambayo ilikuwa inatulazimu ati tutoe kwa hazina ya NSSF shilingi 200. Sasa tumebadilisha hiyo sheria na kuanzia miezi miwili iliyopita sasa tunatoa 6% of everybody's salary. Na employers wanatoa 6%.
But even as the government plans to deduct 3% of civil servants' income towards the housing kitty, the Kenya Union of Civil Servants wants the government to ensure its members are paid on time.
The government of William Ruto does not have reason at all to delay payment of workers in this country. What I know as a member of parliament in this country, the problem with this government, Ruto and his team managed to be in the leadership of this country and they were not prepared to lead this country.
Back in Donholm, the president, Ruto, took a swipe at the opposition for agitating for the reduction of unga, saying that the cost of the commodity has already gone down.
Si unga mimi nilipata ikiwa 230. Ni kweli ama si kweli? Saa hii ukienda kwa duka ya Quickmart, saa hii ukienda kwa shuka ya Naivas, unaweza kupata unga sasa imefika 155, 159. Na hiyo ni kazi kidogo nimefanya na akili, hakuna pesa nimeweka ndani. Akili tu peke yake.
Ruto taking the opportunity to criticize members of the opposition for pushing on with their demonstrations, which will go on hand in hand with the scheduled bipartisan talks. Brian Mushiri, NTV, Nairobi.
Kalonzo has hit out at the government for what he terms as undermining the constitution and accused it of seeking to derail devolution. Speaking in Ngonda village, Matungulu sub-county in Machakos County, Kalonzo said since independence, civil servants have never gone without pay. Kalonzo once again reiterated that the IEBC servers must be opened to determine the winner of the 2022 August polls.
Ninaangalia mambo haya na ninaona kuna shida Kenya wakati huu. Kwa hivyo hii serikali they don't believe in devolution. They don't. Na sababu ni kwamba ile katiba ilileta devolution, ungatuzi ni katiba ya 2010. Walioko mamlakani saa hii walipinga hiyo katiba. Nataka niwakumbushe walipinga kabisa. Kwa hivyo hataki kusikia gavana Wavinya amekusanya pesa zake na analipa mshahara wake. They are actually salivating for that money if only it can go to the national government.
Well, speaking of civil servants and delayed pay, with me in studio I have various representatives of health unions, and we have Dennis Miskela Mbega, who is the Deputy Secretary General, KMPDU. Second time I'm hosting him on AM Live. We also have Peterson Washira, Chair, Kenya Union of Clinical Officers. I think I've lost count. And for the first time I'm hosting Collins, but I have seen him on NTV Sasa. We have Collins Otieno Ajwang, President, National Nurses Association of Kenya, and Libea Bethwell, who is the Chair, Advocacy Committee, Pharmaceutical Society of Kenya, Young Pharmaceutical Group. I was not sure whether it's pharmacy or pharmaceutical. Oh, there we have it. And with them, we'll be getting into this pain of late pay ministry reorganization. I asked the question, where does it hurt? Because this studio will be a triage. I'll be seeking as a triage nurse to establish just how serious a condition health services are in this country. But before then, let's quickly take a look at what is making headlines as far as the national dailies are concerned. And Daily Nation, this is the big story. I don't see how any other story could be bigger than this at the moment. Cult of death massacre as 39 bodies exhumed from mass graves. Kenyans express outrage at how the government has handled the matter. The pastor in question is in a photo inset, and when I look at the caption, it reads that detectives removed some of the 18 bodies that were exhumed yesterday from a mass grave in Shakahola village in Kilifi County. 39 bodies have now been retrieved since the exercise started on Friday. The shocking deaths by starvation of members of a suspected cult continued to be unearthed yesterday, with 18 more bodies exhumed at Shakahola village in Kilifi County, even as the authorities finally acknowledged the scale of the atrocity as a massacre. And police now also suspect that some of the victims didn't fast to death but were killed before being buried. And as the search enters the fourth day today, the death toll can only go up. 15 is the number of grave sites police have identified on the 800-acre piece of land associated with Pastor Paul Mackenzie of the Good News International Church. And speaking strictly from a medical perspective, Dr. Dennis, how long would it take somebody to starve to death?
Thank you very much. It's been a really sad week just listening to what's been going on in Malindi. And beyond the medical aspect, just the pain of having to starve to death is something that I don't think that would wish on your worst enemy. But more tragic is that even children would not subscribe to that religion, don't make that choice, to pay that price. And the challenge is that where is the gap? Is it the security gap that don't pick up that? Or is it that there's something that is not right within how we run our affairs in the country? But to your question then is that by 7 days, if you've not had any food or water, you're already in trouble. Yeah, your body goes into dehydration mode. Yeah, and then when you don't have the fluid, then you start having what's called metabolic syndrome, where everything goes haywire. Yeah, so the longest that has been recorded of somebody who stayed without any water or food was, I think it was around 15 days. Yeah, but by the end of the fourth, fifth day already you are getting out of consciousness, sleeping out, and you're not able to do basically what a healthy person, a living person should be able to. So whatever happened in Malindi, I hope and pray that it will never happen. But then the tragic part of it in the rescue mission is that I've been seeing policemen and people digging, but I'm able to see a temporary hospital set up. There are beyond 0 trucks in the counties. I'm able to see the county team, the county medical team, because when you rescue somebody from your state, you want to put IV lines immediately, start running fluids immediately. But to carry them almost 50 kilometers to the nearest facility just shows you how broken down the health system is there. And you saw the locals yesterday in last news complaining that they have not even seen a single county official in that area. You know, almost 50 plus people dead and others still being found in the forest, and there's no system put in place to ensure that they are rescued and given drugs and fluids on site. Because how do you expect somebody who's not been eating like for 10 days plus? You want them to open, I saw people say that they refuse to open their mouths to feed. At this point, they're not even mentally in a state to think. They can't refuse. You fix a line, run fluids, not telling somebody is almost dying to open their mouth to eat or to drink water. They can't. Yeah. Okay.
You actually preempted my next question to Peterson, which was what is the first course of action in such a situation? So 7 days dry fast, that is without food and water, you're in a critical condition.
Yes, it is good.
All right. So Peterson, we've been told by Dr. Dennis here that first line course of action is fluids, an IV line.
Yeah, actually, because there's a person whose sugars are low. I think a basic search of hypoglycemia, you call it hypoglycemia, will show you that this person goes into confusion all the way to coma. They're also in dehydration, and probably they are heading into shock because they have lost enough water. So this is a person who is mentally clouded. If actually you are lucky enough to find them in a position they can actually be able to move, this is not a person you want to try and convince to take something. So you have to resuscitate, and the resuscitation includes you must be able to raise their sugars, you must be able to rehydrate them, to give them enough water that they have been able to lose. And it's only after you have probably resuscitated, now these people can be having the mental capacity to be able to engage you, and probably now you can be able to say they're either complying or they're not complying. But at that state, and I agree with my brother Ms. Keller, that I would say that the government is also negligent. Because we expected to see, where is Red Cross? Where are all these organizations that deal with health rescue teams? These are the teams that we were expecting to see on the ground, together with, of course, the forensic experts, so that we also want to know, apart from the hunger and the starvation they are talking about, would there be something else? Because it is not normal for so many people to be probably brainwashed into starving to death. So we also want to know, is there something beyond the starvation? Is there probably something they are being given to confuse them?
And I'm curious, Collins, have you ever come across anything like that? And as you were speaking, I was looking up the Kenya Red Cross Twitter handle just to make sure they were not on site. But here I can see they are in Malindi. We have set up tracing and counseling desks at the Malindi Sub-County Hospital for the Shakahola response. So far, 112 people have been reported missing at the tracing desk. So they might not be at the ranch, not that I've seen, they might be, I don't know, this is what I can see, but they are within the vicinity. But Collins, have you ever witnessed something like this?
I want to start by saying that this is the effect of low investment in healthcare, because as you can see, there was an Abuja declaration that mandated countries to set aside 50% of their revenue to healthcare. But you can see that there is low investment in healthcare, there is no health facility within, and also the health workers are not even there, because the health workers are, the shortage of health workers across board. And also the government policies, like, you see, registering even a health facility in such an area is, first, there is poor security. Two, it is a monumental task to register a health facility and run one. But it is more easy to have a church operating in such an area. So I think the government has need to do more in terms of investment. I think they should invest more in, we should do more investment in health, unlike doing more investment and in religion. So I think it is something that we need to look at moving forward. But ideally, this is something that is beyond something that has gone so much.
Quite shocking,
yeah.
Quite shocking. Dr. Bethwell, your sentiments on the issue. You're a young pharmaceutical group, so I assume this is but even within various religions, we've just come out of Ramadan. We have people, so they were fasting, right? A day-long fast, and then they break it. Christians fast usually at the beginning of the year, 21-day fasts and all that. So fasting is really not strange or new to Kenya. You know, what are some of the things that people should keep in mind when fasting?
All right. Thank you so much. First of all, one of the things that people should keep in mind while fasting, and I think that is something that Dr. Miskela has mentioned, there's a certain extent that you're not meant to go beyond. And that is with regards to the number of days that one is fasting. And looking at what happened in Shakahola, or what is still happening there, I think they disregarded medical guidance. And perhaps I may not necessarily press the burden of responsibility on the victims, because maybe they didn't have the information that they need, and that points us to, I mean, do we have people who are passing across this message? Do we have health professionals who are educating the masses? Because that's where we begin primary health care. It's preventive medicine, medical education. So some of the things that people need to consider while fasting, number one is, do they have any medical condition? That is one thing that they need to consider. If they have medical condition, of course, they need to inform their doctors or their healthcare service providers, I'm about to engage in a fasting. So how should I engage in this fasting? Another thing that they need to consider is, of course, now that ties to their medical condition. Are they on any medication? Because when you're engaging in any type of fasting and you're on any medication, there are certain things that you need to observe, because there's some medication that you need to take with food. So if you're engaging in fasting and you're not taking food, then it may compromise the effect of those medicines in your body. So those are some of the things that people need to consider. And of course, it points out to lack of information that is out there. But again, who is meant to provide this information? They're healthcare providers, healthcare service providers, healthcare workers who are not deployed to these remote areas because, of course, of the dysfunctional health system that we have in this country.
All right. And I'm working on just pulling up some of the union statements in preparation for a discussion. But I'll put a pin in that. Let's take a look at what else is on the front page of the dailies. Let's head now. Wait, let's finish up with Daily Nation, because we just looked at one, actually. At least there's one inspiring story that I've seen on the front page. Usually they're few and far between. And that is Kenya's Kelvin Kiptum crosses the finish line, and this is him, to win the men's race of the 2023 London Marathon in central London yesterday. Kiptum ran the second fastest official time over the distance in history. The 23-year-old broke the course record with an astonishing time of 2 hours, 1 minute and 27 seconds. Kenya's Perez Jepchirchir finished third in the women's race. I think I would need a whole day just to cover half that distance. Also on the front page, speaking of salaries, we'll down tools. If April pay is delayed, state told. Union of Kenya Civil Servants and Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers warned of a nationwide strike if the government, which has acknowledged cash flow problems but has vowed not to borrow to pay salaries, fails to process the payments on time. More details on that on the back page of the Daily Nation. And I can see here the Kenya Union of Civil Servants Secretary General Tom Odege addresses mourners during the funeral of former university's Academic Staff Union Chairman Muga Kolale at Agoro Sare Primary. And we see a quote, "We have not seen a decrease in revenue collection since the previous administration left office. Therefore, there is no reason at all for salary delays." Gentlemen, I'm curious what you make of the government repeatedly, drilling it into our minds that the coffers were empty, there is no money. So what would you rather we do, delay salaries or default on our debt? Dr. Dennis Riskela Bega.
Thank you very much. I think it's very unfortunate that the government can wake up one day and tell us that they're no longer able to pay salaries. Because KRA has clearly said that they are collecting the money quite well. But then where is the money going? Because the first responsibility that a government should do is just pay their civil servants, because everything that we're able to generate as a country is because workers have gone out there. Yeah? And when workers go to work, they know that at the end of the month, all they want is their salary. Yeah? Where you're going to get that money is not the business, and that's why you're elected there to think it out. Yeah, but to just wake up, say that we don't have money, we won't pay, and worst of it, when they go ahead and say that we won't even borrow, we won't even go out of our way to find ways of paying you, then what do you want me to do as a worker? I woke up every day, did my bit. At home, when I leave my children, they expect that daddy has gone to work, there'll be bread in the evening for supper. Yeah, my landlord will not understand that we have cash for problems. They want us to pay the rent. My bank will not understand that I've not been paid. They want their loan paid. Neither will I use even my ID as a doctor to get into a petrol station and fuel my car. So what do you want us to do as the workers when we don't pay our salaries? That's the question that the government must tell us clearly, that what do they want the workers to do? Because at the end of the day, Kenya, as of now, from what I've been reading around, because I've tried to read around what's happening, is that it's not about what we are getting, it's about how we are spending it. Because you can't be a father that your child comes to that, daddy, I'm starving, or I need a new pair of shoes, and you tell them that, hey, I don't have money at all. But the next day they see you have bought new tires for your car. The next day you have taken a trip with your friends for a road trip with your boys. But when you have asked for money for sugar, you are having cash for problems at work. That guy telling us that, hey, we have money to buy cars, we have money for trips all over the place. I'm told guys, some ministers even carry their chefs abroad. But when it comes to just the basic decency, you're just paying the worker. You say that we don't have money for that. That's not fair. And I urge all the civil servants in the country. Because so far, all the healthcare workers have issued strikes and walkouts and all that. That anybody who has not been paid their salary, you have no business being at your workplace unless the government can give us free housing, they can give us transportation to work, our kids can go to schools with free bursaries, so that the only thing we're now left with that we don't have money to save on the side, then you can be able to wait for another day. But until your landlord does not give anything about how they're ready to be paid, I urge all workers of this nation to stay out of work. Not because you are striking, not because you don't like our work or you don't like our patients, but because how can you take care of people when you can't take care of your own self? When the Bible says love your neighbor like you love yourself, basically you have to fix yourself first before you fix anything else around you. Yeah.
All right, so we continue with this conversation on the other side of this break. But speaking of housing, I see on the back page of the Daily Nation accompanying that story on salary delays, state to match government workers 3% contribution to housing fund in new plan 30,000. The number of housing units that the Kenya Kwanza administration has built in Nairobi under the planning to build under the affordable housing project. Okay, so we continue with, we'll quickly finish up with the papers on the other side of the break and then come back with the meat and potatoes of today's conversation. Where does it hurt? This is Triage. I'm the Triage nurse, the pain of late pay and ministry reorganization in the health service sector.
The Ministry of Education and the Ministry of ICT and Innovation have recognized the importance of digital literacy and are investing heavily to ensure that all Kenyans have the proper skills and knowledge to navigate this digital world.
What else needs to be done to meet the ambitious targets set in ICT, in the education and training policy, and the digital master plan around digital literacy for all?
There's need for government to work together with stakeholders to see what is the other best way to ensure that the capitation grant is sufficient for implementation of digital literacy.
Government and private sector is empowering these teachers with the relevant, affordable and accessible digital learning content, especially when it comes to learners with a disability.
Catch us on Monday only on NTV.
Pata taarifa teke na e-paper. Stay in the know on the go, getting the full story bila ngori. To sign up, choose your preferred subscription. Use the promo code SUBZ22 to get 20% off and pay. Get your favorite newspaper and enjoy the truth anywhere, anytime. For inquiries, email epaper@ke.nationmedia.com or call 0790 111 111. Subscribe today and get your taarifa teke.
In life, you could be eager to be employed or be self-employed. Either way, you do need the right skills. This is the point where Goodwall is essential to you. Goodwall is a professional social media platform that offers you earning and learning opportunities. It offers you great chances to grow in your career, learn new skills, showcase your existing skills, network with like-minded people, or get job opportunities. Nation Media Group, in partnership with Goodwall, aim at providing solutions to unemployed African youth, creating digital content that inspires young people to stretch themselves and get the right skills that are useful to employers and their peers. So, how can you be part of this? Every month, we'll give you a chance to win $150 through our monthly challenge. Anyone can participate. Just look out for the challenges on NTV Kenya's social media platforms. Join the challenge now.
Manchester City has won 4 of the past 5 Premier League titles. Arsenal has not won the Premier League since 2003-04, the season of Arsene Wenger's Invincibles. Either City or Arsenal is going to be this season's Premier League champion, the title possibly on the brink of being decided.
That moment when you start to get back to ordinary, and ordinary feels amazing. Whatever pain you're going through, release starts here.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. And before I get the rest of my panelists' thoughts on empty coffers and delayed salaries, let's quickly take a look at what else is on the front pages. And to finish up with the Daily Nation jitters in military, police over Coast Guard medical scheme, the appointment of a senior police officer to lead the Kenya Coast Guard service has unsettled the military, which is also concerned about an ongoing parliamentary audit of projects implemented by the Kenya Defence Forces. Meanwhile, the police are unhappy with the new medical insurance cover they say has limited benefits and restricts the health facilities they can go to. I remember, was it how many months, just a couple of months back, we saw doctors in Kiambu, was it Uasin Gishu as well, if I can remember correctly, protesting over the medical scheme. So I'll get your thoughts, health workers in general. I'll get your thoughts on that soon enough. Front page of the Taifa Leo. This is their headline. Ujanja wa Ruto kuteka boma la Raila. Karata, rais azindua miradi mingi ya maendeleo Nyanza, sajili wafuasi wengi wa UDA ngome hiyo na kutumia waasi wa Raila kujivumisha. Pombe haramu ya uziwa chooni, watengenezaji wa vileo haramu wa buri mbinu ya kukwepa polisi kwa kuuza bidhaa zao chooni na vichochoroni. I see Kelvin Kiptum again on the front page of the Taifa Leo. Mishahara kukatwa, serikali yatangaza mpango wa kukata 3% ya mshahara ya watumishi wa umma na kuelekeza kwa hazina ya makazi. I see mili 18 zaidi yafukuliwa Shakahola. Let us see Business Daily front page, and it reads, Kerry will allow used car importers to defer taxes. And the details on the front page, at least at this, duty on vehicles to be delayed by up to a year. Importers are now paying taxes within 30 days. I see a lot of vehicles here on the front page. Equity buys extra 6.6% stake in DRC Bank for 9.2 billion Kenya shillings on the ticker. Kenya Power bags 623 million shillings for tariff discount revenues. Kenya Power. Do I have my Business Daily? Here I go. Kenya Power has received 673 million shillings from state-owned energy firms as a compensation for lost revenue from last year's electricity tariff discount, helping lower negative impact of the subsidy on its books. Listed banks take 87% of Kenya industry profits. Banks listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange took 87.3% of the total profits recorded in the Kenyan banking sector in the year ended December. An analysis of their performance shows. And Kenyan startups get 91 billion shillings from VC funds. Kenyan startups got 91.4 billion from venture capital funds last year, defying a global decline in such funding and closure of tech companies. A new report by African Private Equity and Venture Capital Association shows Kenya received 91.4 billion shillings, representing 13% of the total $5.2 billion raised over the year. And I see OPED under intelligence. Developers are not being held to account in any shape or form outside the courtroom, where they've been taken to either by unsatisfied buyers or even more unsatisfied bankers. That one by Carol Musyoka. Okay, let's take a look now at the front page of the Standard. And this is their headline. Wasted term for junior secondary learners are back home, but for the pioneer junior secondary class, it has been a period marked with numerous challenges, from shortage of teachers to lack of textbooks. The pupils have weathered the first term storm. Kelvin Kiptum here again on the front page. He misses the world marathon record by seconds, but congratulations to him. And I see also here on the front page of the Standard an image of Raila Odinga. May the 2nd the return of mass action. And the very top here, housing fund to take 3% of salary. Health, drug themes dominate drama festival. Schools put their best on display in drama and film competition. The Star now to finish up with, and this is their headline. And I'll be discussing this later on this week. Mount Kenya restive over Uhuru and Gachagua clash. Camps emerge threatening to tear Central apart over who calls the shots. Ruto orders compulsory housing fund deductions. I see again Kelvin Kiptum celebrated on the front page across the board. And when I scroll further down, I see Mackenzie, former taxi driver turned cult leader. Controversial preacher Paul Mackenzie, whose cult-like teachings have led to the death of a number of his followers, was a taxi driver in Malindi town in the 1990s. The news of his suicide sect in Kenya's north coastal town of Malindi has since caught global attention. And ironically, rains are a curse for drought-stricken families in Asals. Rains have turned out to be a curse for thousands of drought-stricken families in the country. The National Drought Management Authority has said flash floods have displaced hundreds of families, even as the drought situation remains critical. So that's it for the dailies. Let's get into the topic of conversation. And here it is. Where does it hurt? Health services triage. Pain of late pay, ministry reorganization. Speaking of late pay, I did promise to give the other panelists, the rest of my panelists this morning, occasion to comment on this front page story, which is highlighted on the front page, but actually in full on the back page of the Daily Nation. Will down tools if April pay is delayed, state told. Union of Kenya Civil Servants and the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers warned of a nationwide strike if the government, which has acknowledged cash flow problems, let me take that again. Union of Kenya Civil Servants and Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers warned of a nationwide strike if the government, which has acknowledged cash flow problems but has vowed not to borrow to pay salaries, fails to process the payments on time. Peterson, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Olive. And I think we joined them. We started and we said that we were giving a permanent walkout notice for every 6th of every month if our members are not going to be paid. And I don't actually believe that the government is broke, because I have many reasons to believe that there is a narrative being pushed here by the government. And to start off is that this government has told us that probably the previous government was wasteful. It was taking too much money into subsidizing unga and whatever else, which we are not doing now. Also, they subsidized, I think, fuel and electricity, which we are not doing now, meaning we have released more money for the government to work with. KRA has also told us that they have surpassed their target by 8%. And so that means that we have a lot of money. And also when we look at the body language of the government, every other weekend they're out there, they're promising projects. I think I heard about 30 billion somewhere in Meru and so many projects across the country. So I don't think that it's the money that we don't have. It is money that we don't have for what is not priority for this government. We know political entities push narratives for different reasons. One of it would be probably to stop the unions from agitating for more pay, of which they know that this is a CBA cycle has come to an end and we must be able to complete CBA. So this is something that is coming. They may be building a narrative for that. The other thing is that they may be building a narrative so that Kenyans do not blame them if they do not do whatever they promised, because there was no money. And we told you there was no money. And what we fear most, and we have heard that probably IMF is pushing them to resize the civil service, is that probably the government might be pushing this narrative so that they can be able to retrench. We hope that that does not happen, because we continue provoking employees. You start with salary delays and you even tell us that you don't have any plan to borrow to pay salaries. Then you tell us that we must pay NSSF even when we have another pension, which I think the court stopped. And now we are being told that they want to deduct another 3% from our salaries for housing, without consideration that some of us may actually be servicing mortgages. workers have autonomy over their salary, and an employee doesn't have the obligation, doesn't have the mandate to impose any deduction on any worker. So if the government wants to get a 3% from workers, they must engage the union so that the workers themselves would be able to give consent. If that does not happen, of course, as unions, we are going to be against that, and we are going to take all the measures to ensure that the workers' pay is not deducted without their consent.
All right. Collins, do you agree with Dr. Miskela as well as Peterson on the issue of empty coffers? Dr. Dennis here gave us a very good mental image, you know. Daddy tells you hakuna pesa ya sukari lakini amenunua taya mpya, gari mpya, ameenda boys trip. Is that how you view things?
Thank you, Olive. I believe that the government is so bright, and the government has managed to rein in the unions by diverting their attention. Right now, the mandate of the union is to negotiate CBAs and also dispute resolution, and also to make sure that the unions follow up on implementation of promotions, welfare of the health personnel, and the rest. But look at what the government has managed the unions to do. The government has managed to put the unions in a situation where they are looking for, the unions are now looking for salaries for their members. So this one, to me, is a diversionary tactic by the government, which the unions should be smarter to overcome. I also don't believe that the issue is about empty coffers, because most counties have paid their workers. So why is it that only a few are left that, that have not paid their workers? I want to take you through the life of a healthcare provider, basically a nurse. A nurse goes to, nurses make 65% of the health workforce in Kenya. And a nurse performs almost 80% of health services in all our healthcare settings. So a nurse in any clinical setting, for example, let's take for example, maternal child health unit. A nurse goes, have several activities running in that department, like immunization and family planning issues. But in the case of maybe a nurse gets 40 mothers, clients coming for antenatal clinic, there's a whole antenatal profile that a nurse has to go to. You take the vital signs, take this mother through history taking, do investigations that include testing for malaria, testing for levels of blood levels of HB, urinary disease, rhesus factor, PMTCT, venereal diseases, and all those other things, just to make sure that the nurse has a complete picture of the patient. Then from there, the nurse goes and do examination of the patient to confirm everything is possible, to the extent that at times we even do obstetric ultrasounds to these clients. By the time you finish with the one client, it will take you like 20 minutes. And you have a whole lot of 40 patients waiting for the same nurse. Most nurses work 2 or 1 in level 2 or level 3s. So if this small component this small department has taken like 20 minutes per patient, 40 patients are waiting for you, 50 patients to wait for you, it will take you like 16 hours to complete this. And remember, you have other activities to do. This nurse goes home without anything. The salaries are delayed for 3 months. Does not have transport. The children are waiting for him or for her, as Dr. Miskela has already said. And then you have got also bills to pay. Right now, most health workers have been evicted from their houses because of delay in payment of salaries. But they are also taxpayers. They are deducted from their slips. So the issue of empty coffers does not come in. What the government needs to do is prioritize on its mandate, on its objectives, so that health becomes a priority. Salaries of health workers should be a priority to every county government that is the employer of nurses. But then the county are also not employing because they know that they don't want to invest in health, and that's why we know we have the we know the problem. And these are historical injustices that has been happening in health for a long time. We have the answers to this, but politicization of health has not made it easy for healthcare to be taken seriously in Kenya. Thank you.
Politicization of health. I'd like us to get more into that so that I can get a clearer understanding of what you mean. And Dr. Bethel, I'm coming to you. But be thinking about this, Dr. Dennis, your situation, the counties say, is not unique. So first of all, I'd like a clearer picture of how many counties have not still remain behind on payments to their health workers. But the counties say they're short of 125 billion. The last time I listened to the president of COG, she said the last time they received the allocations from the national government was December. I saw the Mombasa governor Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir, when he was hosting the deputy president in Mombasa, say ilibidi wabambanye waombe they borrow to pay their health workers. So this is a situation where to understand the governors correctly, the shoe is pinching for everyone. So what do you expect in such a situation? But nitakuja hapo. Dr. Bethwell, where are you employed?
Thank you, Olive. On this panel, I represent pharmacists, and I'm also a face of the unemployed doctors. So currently, I'm not attached anywhere.
You're not attached anywhere?
Yes.
How has that come about? After how many years of training?
After, I'll say, 6 years of training, 7. Actually, because I did my undergrad for 6 years, and then there's 1 year mandatory internship, so those are 7 years. And I graduated in 2019. So I've been out doing 1 or 2 things, which are not necessarily related to my training. So that came about, of course, after health was devolved and the functions were devolved as well. So it meant then that after the 1 year mandatory internship, which was being conducted or being supervised by the national government, then it meant healthcare workers, especially the doctors, that is the pharmacists, medical officers and dentists, were to seek employment from the county government. And it hasn't been an easy path because it comes with its own set of bureaucracies. Looking at pharmacies specifically, there are counties that have gone 2-3 years without advertising any position for pharmacists. And yet we understand that, the importance of this set of professionals in the healthcare system. We've been trained to ensure that the medicines that you use, the medicine that the public use, are safe, efficacious, and that they are of good quality. But what happens if we have understaffing in that particular area? It means the few professionals that have been employed, they'll experience burnout, and number 2, they are converted to be conveyor belts of dishing out medicines instead of offering pharmaceutical care. So you end up having medication injuries, the public having medication injuries, which of course is the 4th leading cause of death worldwide. So it's not only the issue of unemployment, but it cuts across to the safety of the public, the well-being of the public. And it's unfortunate that the government looks at healthcare as an expenditure as opposed to investment. If I contrast that with education, the government looks at education as an investment, and that's why perhaps they put a budget of around 550 billion for TSC. But when it comes to healthcare, it's 4% of the annual budget. That's around 120 billion. We're looking at the unemployed doctors. We're around 4,000 of us. If we calculate how much the government will spend annually for an entry-level job for a doctor, which is the job group M, is around 12 billion annually. So we sit back and ask ourselves this question. So is it lack of political goodwill, or is it designed that the public healthcare system fails? Because it doesn't add up if 30 billion can be assigned for a dam project, and yet we need people healthy, we need the public to be healthy. You're not employing doctors, and yet you're assigning money for projects. And maybe picking up from what Dr. Miskela shared, about civil servants and the pain of delay salaries. I may not have the experience to talk about it, but of course there are those people who have gone for the internship, the 12-month mandatory internship, and their salaries have been delayed by almost 3 months. So I'm wondering, how are they surviving? You're just out of school. You don't have any savings that can act as buffer. You're expected to be at your station at least 40 hours a week. Others do more than 40 hours because the facilities are understaffed and they're depending on interns to fill that gap. So how are they managing it? Because there are bills to be paid. How are they managing it? You are locked up in a facility Monday to Saturday, or 7 days in some situations, and yet you're expected to pay your bill at the end of the month. And of course, now that explains why most of the young, we have cases of young doctors committing suicide. It's because of frustrations that come as a result of that, which is quite unfortunate. That is the situation that we are facing.
How long have you been tarmacking?
I'll say, of course, after my training, I got my license in 2021, May 2021. And of course, after that, tried a few businesses here and there. Things didn't work out because of COVID was there. There was strain in the economy. And so I hung my lab coat April last year. So I hung my lab coat April last year and began freelancing, that is doing writing and digital marketing. Of course, that is not what I trained for 6 years in school, but now circumstances forced me in that direction. Yes.
All right. Dr. Miskela, there's a question that is pending. Counties, so first of all, a status update. How many counties still have not paid the healthcare workers? And number two, counties say they haven't received money since December, so the shoe is pinching for everybody.
As of yesterday, there are 4 pending counties. That is Kisumu County, Vihiga County, Bomet and Nyamira, who have not paid. But remember that when we gave out our initial notice, there were 12 counties that we put out. And it's not about the counties remaining, but the question that where did the other 8 get the money from? Must workers always have to give threats and go out on the streets to get their salary? That's the question that we are to challenge the counties. Then they claimed that there was delayed disbursement. So do you understand that between the day of notice and when they paid, money was sent? No. Yeah? It's just that counties are able to collect some funds at source, yeah, from the market and all that. They get money from donors and other sources. But why some counties prioritize paying healthcare workers, some don't? And why we not take this whole issue about delayed disbursements and issue that we have gone to over 100 strikes since devolution, complaining about delayed salaries. Yeah? So this recent phenomenon is just one of the excuses they have found. But we have always complained. I can single out a county like Homa Bay, who during the entire 10-year term of the previous governor, salaries were constantly paid 1 month late. So that January salaries are paid in March. What is 1 month skip? How do you explain that? When you have a county like Nakuru under Lake Nyanjui, who was paying every 25th years paid promptly. Yeah? You know how our salaries are worked out is that every 15th of the month, the counties raise payroll to the controller of budget, who then sends that money to the salaries account to the counties. Problem that some counties, while they'll take that money and pay workers, others will take that money and pay their cronies and their tenders and do other things, bribe MCAs and all the kind of things. Then when our money, when their money for the development delays, they use our agitation and the restlessness of the delayed salaries to blackmail government to release money for the development so they can use to pay workers. So that's the challenge. So some countries will pay with the money when sent for the employees, others will use it for other things. And that's our biggest fight. Secondly, is that some counties will deduct third-party deductions, like loans, they'll deduct NHIF, they'll deduct payee, and never remit to the people. You get that people doing filing returns, carriers slap you with a fine that you have not paid your payee. It's my business to pay payee when you deducted it. Or you have doctors like in who have not had their loans paid over 1 year. In your pay slip is deducted, but the bank never receives the money. Yeah, and you have the governor from Kisumu that day said so clear that he don't care how your payroll looks, pay slip looks like, how those things are not done. For him, he didn't tell you to take that loan. I'm like, come on, you are my employer, can't talk like that. But the biggest tragedy that we're currently dealing with, that the government, yes, national government will not send money to the branch, to the counties. But I also have a similar analogy that, yeah, you have a son whom has probably an alcohol problem, but he's gotten married and he has children. So yes, the children are starving and they are not going to school, but as a grandfather, you'll be supporting them. But every time you support them, you send this guy the money, he spends it drinking. Will you continue sending this drug or alcohol dependent son of yours to feed his grandchildren? No. You will hold the money, and in fact, people will tell you, why can't you just pay his school fees direct? Why can't you just buy them food and take for them food? Yeah, that is the same thing we are telling Treasury. That yes, we agree that there are a lot of wastage in the county. In the backdrop of the struggling economy, I really know and feel for the government when they say that rather than send this money to be stolen and to be wasted, let's use it for something else. You heard that there are 22 senators who say that we want to increase money to the counties for similar reasons that they'll waste it. But as you are saying that, then why can't Treasury pay us directly? Why must my salary as Ms. Keller working in Embu pass through a governor's pocket? Why must my NHIF as Ms. Keller pass through a governor's pocket? Then they go pocketing it. Why can't we just have a centralized way that when we pay the president, we even pay the cleaner of the mortician down at Runyenjes level 4? Why must we always make that? Because it is through that money passing to the governor's pocket that some of this money is lost to corruption. When they said for money to employ doctors, they don't employ. He said a county like Nakuru now is paying doctors 100,000, when each doctor should have around 217,000. So for what's that, one doctor is split into two, so they can have some money left. Or even the ghost workers, you ask them that, how comes every governor when they come in, they do head counts and exercise ghost workers? When the ghosts come back again, so somebody comes in, removes the old ghosts and put their new ghosts. You see that? That's the corruption that has made governors refuse even the idea of a health service commission, because they know that when you take away that payroll from them, then they have nowhere else to sink their teeth on. Yeah, and if Kenyans want to fix the whole mess, I tell that even today, if President Ruto sent all the arrears to the counties still won't pay on time, because there's some chickiness that goes on, that when the salary money comes in, some put it to some high interest yielding account first before they pay back. You get that? Some see that it's a lot of corruption that goes down in the county, I tell you, Olive. And until we find ways that you can play your dirty games, we can complain about the corruption, but you have no powers around you as employees. But until at least you see that as healthcare workers, the biggest devolved function in this country is healthcare. But every time you challenge the government, if you can't even pay on time, the facilities lack drugs, ambulances are not fueled, X-ray films are not there, the labs are not working, then what are you doing? 10 years after the evolution, you can't talk about teething problem anymore. This baby is now getting to adolescence. You can't be saying the same thing, that teething problem. And I call upon all Kenyans, be it the senators, any MCAs, anybody responsible for the evolution, to do something. The other day you saw senators miss their salaries just for 3 days. You saw the noise. For just 4 days delay. It was the whole country was burning. Then they got paid, then everything went back quietly. Healthcare workers go through this month in, month out for the last 10 years. In CRB, the notorious lot is healthcare workers. The other day, some young doctor called me that his circle refused to give him a loan. Why? They call him an erratic saver. Because the president you can't even budget for it. It is wrong, and something must give. One thing I can tell you for free, that it won't be the healthcare workers giving in. We will work out every 6th day of the month moving forward. If we don't have fuel, we'll stay at home. If we don't have food, we'll stay at home. Until government puts its house in order. We don't know. Healthcare workers can be treated with this idea of a child going to their father for school fees. The father says go to your mother. You go to the mother says go to your father. No, we go to the county, they say national government. Go to national government, oh, you guys are devolved. And the minister comes and says the CS that, oh, I'm ready to mediate. Mediate what? Pay up the salaries, simple.
Okay. Interesting that you said you brought in the health CS, because that is exactly what she said. She said the healthcare is devolved. Your fight is with the county governments. The county governments are your employer. Health ministry is a mediator. And then she said they're waiting for the operationalization. I had to say that one with intent. Ingetoka vingine and I just want to pull up this on my phone. The Kenya Health Human Resource Advisory Council. But first, are health workers in denial, Peterson? Like Dr. Miskela has said, it's been 10 years of devolution. Isn't it about time you accept that this function was devolved? The national government, he talked about grandfathers, has left you to your own devices. Deal with your employer.
Yeah, and you see, that is actually the narrative that the politicians are pushing. That, look, these healthcare workers do not want to be closely supervised. They don't want to be under devolution. And that's a wrong narrative, because we were actually centralized when we were devolved. Yeah. When we were under national government, we were actually supervised even most recently. We had systems that would supervise you up to the sub-county and will report all the way back. And if you remember very well, we never used to even have shortage of supplies in our hospitals as we do now. But before I lose that thought that Ms. Keller was talking about, you know, you wonder why the county governments continue to cling on to this money. Why should you be a broker? You are given money to pass to Olive. How do you benefit? And the reason as to why counties do not want to release this money is because they must be benefiting in some way. And in their benefiting, they're actually hurting Kenyans. They are hurting provision of healthcare services. When they go into these banks and get an overdraft and get a loan, you have to pay interest. Then when the banks are paying, they don't pay for deductions. They don't pay for your payee, for your NHIF, for your loan deduction. They only pay the net pay. So you are still late to pay your deductions and whatever you are supposed to pay for your loan. When this money comes to the governors, they are going to pay the interest. As they pay their payee, they are also going to pay a penalty to KRA, a penalty to NHIF, and to the others. But there is no money added on top of that by the national government for them to pay the interest and the penalties. So who suffers? The development budget for healthcare services, to build infrastructure, to purchase equipment, to buy reagents, to buy essential supplies like drugs. So you have this never-ending cycle of challenges created by a very simple fact. That there is this money that is supposed to be paid to Olive, but we have to give to Ms. Keller first so that he can give to Olive. So why can't we then have a centralized way of paying salaries? And that does not affect devolution. Why can't we have an account for salaries for devolution that brings together the 47 county governments so that when Treasury pays, then everybody can be paid at the same time so that they do not have actually to suffer. Now, when it comes to whether we are in denial, you remember before we went for devolution, we had a protracted strike. And I remember then we were told the train had left. I don't know where the train was going, since I know you were talking about Kenya and it couldn't go beyond Kenya. And a conversation about health is a very important conversation that we should have as Kenyans. What we were asking for is that we have no problem with devolution. And the idea of devolution was very good. Those people who had a vision of devolving healthcare services, they actually wanted to bring universal health coverage and closer to that Kenyan down there, and especially to the marginalized areas. But then we knew that there was no proper framework to ensure that there is effective management of health human resources. And that is what we are asking for. That please, can you delay this a bit? We create systems to ensure there is effective management of human resources for health, and then we can go into devolution. But then we were forced down into the devolution. And that is what we are seeing now. A county like Kisumu, for the last, I think now would be 6 years, heading to 7 years, this problem of salary delays has been there. And for so many other counties. What we can say about our health service today is that it's actually not working. There is probably no dispensary or health center, leave alone the level 4s and level 5s because they know that there is a lot of limelight on them. In this country, if you go to any dispensary or a health center, it is very difficult to get essential supplies and especially to get drugs. The result to a common Kenyan is that the cost of getting these health services goes high. And how does that happen? When you come to me as a clinic officer in a health center and I want to diagnose you, I will probably send you for some lab works. Those lab works are not available because we don't have reagents in the lab. So I'll send you out to a private laboratory. You're going to pay more. Then when I give you a prescription, you're also going to purchase these drugs from a chemist that is outside the hospital, which are also going to pay more. But what baffles me even more is that when you see a slight challenge in the education sector, the public will be up in arms. The Twitter will be blowing up. But when people are even dying from a failure in the public healthcare system, we do not see Kenyans come up and complain the same way. And I think that is where we actually do have the problem, because for the politicians, as long as the electorate, as long as the person who gives them the vote, because for them they follow their vote, is not complaining, then the politician is not going to take any measures. And that is why we have been saying that it's about time we have a law or a regulation somewhere that if you are an elected leader in this country, you must procure your public services, not only health, from education, from transport system, from health. You should be able to procure those services from your local area where you have been elected. So that by doing that, then we will force them to focus and ensure that systems are working down there so that it can favor themselves. You remember a case of an MCA in Nyeri who died in a health center. And it was very unfortunate. I'm not saying that it's a case we should be able to celebrate. It's very unfortunate. You also remember the case of the governor for Nyeri, that they found themselves in a position where they wouldn't be airlifted to their preferred private hospitals there where they could be managed. And they landed in the nearest public health facility. But unfortunate for them, there were no equipment, there were no expertise in some of them where they could be able to actually manage them and offer the emergency services they needed so that they could survive. And they died. And so it must be seen that it affects all of us. And the only way to show that it affects all of us and to make them feel that they are also threatened is to ensure that they consume the same services from the locality where they represent.
Okay, so I need to take a break, but I will come back with Collins and Dr. Bethel. But it's interesting because Dr. Miskela talked about Kisumu County being among the counties, the 4 counties that have yet to pay their healthcare workers. And it's interesting that the last tweet by the Kisumu Governor, Anyang' Nyong'o, is this one. Congratulations, AAR, for expanding your services in Kisumu. The opening of the United Mall branch today brings to 2 the number of healthcare outlets in our city. My administration has put in place policies and programs to help improve provision of healthcare to our people. So, Nyong'o ako sawa, Dr. Miskela. We take a break. We'll be back with more.
We partner with communities across all 47 counties by advancing education, by enhancing healthcare, by supporting economic opportunities. Because when we unite, there's nothing we can't do.
Life ina move fast. Una hustle, una work hard. Na ukifika home, it's the place you can just be na DSTV family. Na feel the drama with captivating novellas. Na feel the joy and laughter wakilearn.
Really?
Na feel the cheer with heart-pumping sporting action. Na feel your stories with African enjoyment at its best. Na feel entertainment with so much more. Na feel home with DSTV family.
Mimi nilikuwa tu pale reserve. Nime-maintain, kuna fresh air, nini, na bros between peace. Alafu, imagine shemeji yangu, akakuja ametoka Nairobi, ati yeye ndio ameomoka. Akaniambia, ati Nairobi iko vitu soft, vitu mzuri. For example, tukifika Nairobi, atanipeleka place inaitwa Village Market, tukakulia huko. Si tukapanga safari, sisi ndio tumewasili wapi? Nairobi. Guess what? Huyu mtu badala ya kunipeleka Village Market, akanirutisha Village, akanipeleka Market.
To get Market Village, dial *812*799#. Skiza na Nation.
Join me, Brent Leo Smith, and my expert team of guides and cameramen as we explore the wonderful wilderness of Africa. Expert guides and cameramen strive to bring the wildness and magic of Africa into your living room. Come join me for Safari on Pridelands.
Right, so the conversation was continuing even during the break, and we'll get into that and what we're discussing actually just now during the break with Peterson, Dr. Miskela, as well as Dr. Bethwell and Collins, is this Kenya Health Human Resource Advisory Council and how it compares to the Health Services Commission that has been proposed by the unions. I did hear you, Peterson, apart from just now in studio, you had Maandamano yourself the other day, and we'll get into that as well. But you said it's possible to have a HSC without compromising or clawing back on devolution, so we'll get into that as well. But before then, Colin, speaking of solutions, Dr. Miskela, Peterson have made the proposal that healthcare workers should be paid directly from the exchequer. What other proposals do you have on the table?
Yeah, we know the problem. We need to craft a solution to it. The problem is that there's a lot of political interference in the management of health system in the country.
Yes, because is it you who talked about politicization of healthcare?
Yes. And I just want to add to the contribution of the pain that we undergo in late payment. That as health workers have been a civil servant for almost 20 years. But when there is a late payment of salary, the bank will always use the next payment to service the loans. So basically, even if the salary is there for 3 months or 2 months, you don't have a salary for the whole cycle. So always late payments make you more of a pauper. As you don't have money gradually. Every month they pay, but it's late payment, it goes to service loans. Because that's why we were saying that salaries should be paid in full, with the third-party deductions also paid. We have got loans. Even right now, banks are sending us messages that your loans are arrears, they are going to take the next action. Those are not good messages from our financial institutions. And it is reducing our ratings and capacity in taking care of our investments. The other thing that I wanted to say is the government employed this issue of contractual employment. This issue of contractual employment was a stopgap measure to beef up the human resource in our counties and our facilities. But it has become like a norm that that's the only mode of employment that is currently in place. And you find that these contracts that are being given, they have no gratuity for the staffs, and they are not in tandem with the scheme of service for employment of health personnel in various cadres. And so the health workers employed under these schemes are literally being paid very, very low salaries. And even these low salaries are being subjected to statutory reductions that have not been remitted. There are also late payments that is also adding to the pain and injury. So perennially health workers tend to be at CRB, and they cannot fend for themselves. And that is not a good message that we are sending to our young ones who wants to be health professionals in future. But moving forward to what can we do to make sure that we as health workers are able to deliver on our mandate to provide high quality of healthcare services in the country. What the government needs to do is, we have got 4 policy priority areas that the government should focus on. And one of them is the government should educate and train highly competent and health personnel with capacities to deal with to meet the population health needs. 2 is the government should make sure that they offer, they provide jobs and offer jobs, are able to recruit on competencies and retain the people that they have recruited. That is paying them on time, making sure that the money is available, and making sure that the trainings are ongoing and on capacity building and the rest. And also the government must manage migration. Currently, as we speak, somebody was telling me that every plane leaving JKA has 4 nurses to Europe. That's real, because there's a lot of nurses. If nurses are not appreciated in their country, then there are other countries who are still appreciating our health workers. We know that these European countries, they are still having a shortfall of almost 15 million health workers that they need. But Kenya, we still need the same healthcare workers. But we are not valuing the contribution of the health workers that we are having. So they tend to go abroad. So we have to manage migration by making sure that we provide them, we provide jobs, and we value our health workers. I think the last time we appreciated our health workers was during the COVID, when the only recognition, appreciation that we had was a plane flying with thank you message at 12 noon. And it ended that. But we managed to rescue the situation, and we stamped our authority and managed COVID. The other thing is on leadership. We have to strategically support healthcare workers through providing them with healthcare leadership trainings, and also in academia. Kenya is doing this very well, and are open the space for career progression to all cadres. Right now, it is not only a specific cadre who has degrees, who has bachelors in their career, but all the other health cadres, the space is open, and they have got the highest proficiencies in their trainings. And the last one is on service delivery. We need to appreciate our workers. We need to have workers who are supported by the government. We need to have workers who are supported, respected, motivated, and provided with the right equipments and supplies to safely deliver the health care to the citizenry. That's our take. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Bethwell. Okay, actually, Collins brought up the issue of leadership, and Peterson will be getting into that, the reason for your mandamano or the other day. But Dr. Bethwell, you know, when you were talking about some counties, the last time they advertised for pharmacists was 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe it's because there's no medicine to dispense, as Peterson said. He says there are no reagents, so you have to send people out to get tested. And then you also talked about dams. The government has money for dams, but not to absorb healthcare workers. Maybe it's a strategy, preventive, because this government is all about preventive healthcare, the dams will prevent hunger and hence you'll have fewer customers. But on a serious note though, you talked about, so why can't you seek out a job in the private sector?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Olive. That's a good question. Why can't I seek a job in the private sector? One thing that has come out clearly amongst the unemployed doctors is that there's been laxity in enforcing some of the guidelines that are provided. For example, we have something called the staffing norms, the Ministry of Health staffing norms. And there is what we call the KMPDC, that is the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Council, staffing or accreditation criteria for facilities in the private sector and also in government. And there is a minimum number of professionals in each cadre that a facility is required to have before they are given a certain accreditation level. For instance, level 4 facility. In a level 4 facility, for it to get that status, the council requires them to have at least 50 medical officers, 4 pharmacists, and 2 clinical pharmacists and 1 specialist pharmacist, because of the medical needs that need to be addressed in that particular facility. But if you take a look across our, you can take a walk into any level 4 private facility. You'll be surprised to get even more than 2 medical officers or more than 3 medical officers on their payroll. And you know, that's a problem that we're experiencing, and is a call out there to the KMPDC to enforce the staffing norms so that at least Kenyans seeking medical services in the private sector get the highest attainable standard of healthcare as enshrined in the Kenyan Constitution, Article 43. And still at that, under the issue of unemployment, of course, under Article 43, also it acknowledges the role of government in ensuring that the public receives the highest standard of healthcare services, which are affordable. And taking a look at, because numbers don't lie, we take a look at the staffing, let's say in Kisumu County. We know Kisumu County, as per the last census, has a population of almost 1.15 million. And we take a look at the number of doctors, and these are including specialists, pharmacists, dentists, and medical officers. It comes to a total of 189 against a population of 1.15 million. Now, what does the WHO recommend? It recommends that for, one doctor should be able to serve 1,000 people. That's on the higher end. But we look at Kisumu is 1 to 6,500. That is the ratio, doctor to patient ratio, 1 to 6,500. We are not doing well in that particular area, and the deficit is almost 966 doctors that Kisumu County has to employ. Same applies to Kisii County. Total number of doctors, 155, including specialists. The population, 1.25 million. So the ratio is 1 to 6,000, a deficit of almost 665 doctors that need to be employed. So it's not that the need is not there, the need is there. And of course, we'll realize the impact that this will have. I have an option of shipping out of the country. As he has said, every plane leaving JKIA has at least 4 nurses. So I have an option of... This
is anecdotal. Let's
yes. I'm just picking his line of thought. And as he's mentioned that, we have an option of going where the pasture seems to be green. But at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, so I leave the country. I know the disease burden that is growing and soon will cripple our health system. So how will my parent be? How will my relatives be? How will my friends, my mom who is in Busia County, how will she seek good quality services at that local facility if I ship out of the country? So on one side, there is that idea of shipping out, but at what cost? Because I can ship out, go and get paid well, but who will I be leaving behind to take care of my parents? So that is at the back of my mind. And if at all the government is serious in investing, not really considering healthcare as an expenditure, investing in the right way. Investing also is not about building hospital facilities. It goes to also cover human resource. So build the facility, yes, but have the right human resource to take care of the patient. So if that is done, we may not necessarily even need the private hospitals, and people will have access to quality, affordable healthcare services in the country.
All right. Yeah. Dr. Miskela?
Yeah, there's something that Dr. has brought up that is important. See, that staff shortage that we're talking about. what one should know that when you go to that hospital and you wait for 6-7 hours to be seen, that those shortage brings to you. When you have a broken limb and you have to wait for a month, 2-3 to get to theater, that what shortage does to you. Forget about these things. They tell you that, oh, healthcare workers are missing work. They have laws to guide them on how to discipline those who are absent. But that shortage hits you hard when you have that wife, sister in labor at the emergency cesarean section and they have to wait the whole day before going to theater. That's what that shortage does to you. And we must look at it. You know, sometimes until it comes home, you might think that these figures we're talking about here are just some things that don't affect us. Yeah. The other thing that I already passed briefly with the KHRAC, the Advisory Council, I really want to tell Kenya that the current CS for health has healthcare at heart. And she's been trying to put things in place to sort this whole mess. The tragedy that even this KHRAC that she talked about, that the president talked about, that it's just an advisory council. And counties are very good at dismissing advice. Anytime they get advice that don't align with their interests, they say, no, we are fully devolved. PAC has been giving guidelines upon guidelines on how they should be handling healthcare workers who are seconded and then those they employ. But when the union takes these guidelines, memos and letters to them, they just dismiss it. So until maybe the law is changed, even on that KHRAC, that they can give compelling advice. There you see the SRC is an advisory body, but they have compelling advice.
Yes.
Until unions are allowed to sit there, because I've already seen governors saying that they want to sit in that board. Until unions the workers are sitting in that advisory council. I'm sorry that we are still very far from fixing this human resource challenge. And also the other challenge is around the healthcare financing. But how do we finance our healthcare? Because there's now the in thing is the UHC. Beyond the building, the drugs and all that, UHC is about Kenya seeking the best healthcare without having to grow poor. But what does the government do? In NHIF, two things have happened. That NHIF, the government has not paid. Even the private hospitals, I've just seen a presser yesterday done by the rural private hospitals. Say that they're owed 5 billion.
Yes.
How do you want them to run the healthcare? But more importantly, that if you have an NHIF which 80% of NHIF collections go to private hospitals, why could we then invest more in public hospitals? That this NHIF, but the 80% of it goes to the public healthcare. Because imagine if you gave public sector around 100 billion every year, what can it do? Just building a hospital like Kenyatta costs around 12 billion. You could invest in much more. But the saddest tragedy that I've seen in the newspaper, that even the healthcare workers, the civil servants, the police, the teachers have all been transitioned from NHIF to private health insurances. And we all know that these private insurances don't cover public hospitals. They only cover private. So you cannot say that you're going to finance UHC using NHIF when you take police away from them, military away from that, and the counties now are taking away healthcare workers. In Kiambu, they have taken people to a private insurance. Same with Meru and all that. I can assure you that the government is saying one thing and walking a very different talk. And Kenyans, please, I call upon you to challenge your MCAs, your MPs, your senators to ensure that the government walks the talk around this whole healthcare financing that will sort out the issue of infrastructure and human resources.
All right. And the story that Dr. Miskela was referencing is actually on page 6 of the Daily Nation. And here it is, police chafe at inadequate new health insurance cover. Police officers who spoke to Nation in confidence said the outpatient cover wasn't adequate. And members of the National Police Service used to be covered under the NHIF. This report by Steve Otieno tells us police are unhappy with a new medical insurance cover they say has limited benefits and restricts the health facilities they can go to. The discontent with the medical scheme offered by CIC Insurance that took effect in January is mostly among junior officers. Members of the National Police Service used to be covered under NHIF. Police who spoke to Nation in confidence said the outpatient cover was not adequate. 9.3 billion shillings annual cost that NHIF had proposed for providing medical insurance cover for police officers in its unsuccessful bid for a new contract. So more on that on page 6 of the Daily Nation. You also raised the question of NHIF and a state press conference that was held Yesterday, Dan Wangi forwarded that statement with me. The Rural Private Hospitals Association of Kenya has given the NHIF, CIC and Britam 10 days to pay 5 billion of unpaid funds, or else they transfer the new bills to patients, which will be 1,000 per visit. Speaking at a press conference at KMA Center, the chairman, Dr. Brian Lishenga, said since December 2022, only 30% of submitted claims under CIC Britam Insurance Consortium have been paid. This is causing struggle for service providers whose workers have gone without salaries for 3 months now. They said NHIF has concentrated on the big service providers and left the remote and rural hospital facilities struggling, and they're committed to the... Okay, so I will leave it there. But speaking of statements issued, the other day I said our good friends, Peterson included, had gone for maandamano. It was over this memo, this internal memo from the Ministry of Health, Office of the Cabinet Secretary, and this has to do with reorganization of the ministry. So several appointments made, and at the very end of this statement is a sentence that reads, these appointments have been made in an acting capacity. Let me see. The above officers assume office in acting position effective 19th April 2023. What is your issue with this internal memo?
Yeah, thank you, Olive. And probably even before I come to that, you know, in such an engagement, I think one of the leaders in this country said that some of us have become health activists. And they have made us to be health activists. Even before this one, you remember we had a demonstration about 3 other issues, about the universal health coverage staff, both the interns, we have those who are called CHAP, and we had the issue of interns, where they decided to employ UHC interns and what they called CHAP, the COVID-19 emergency response, for 1 year. They used them, some of them died from COVID, and then they dumped them. And they are very frustrated. Actually, some of them are even sending me messages anytime they see me to tell me highlight our issues. And then they refuse to post our interns, and you can see for even those who have been posted, they have not been paid. So that was the first mandamano that we did. And thank God, the Senate has actually taken it serious, and today in the afternoon we are actually going to have a sitting with the Labour Committee in the Senate so that we can be able to get solutions for that. Now, coming to the appointments, our issue is that the Ministry of Health, its main role is making policies. The policies they make, they guide the implementation of the universal health coverage, and more specifically, the kind of services that we are going to offer to this Mwananchi. The kind of services we want to offer to this Mwananchi, according to the plan, to the current government's manifesto now called the plan, is that we want to use primary health care so that we can be able to make the journey to the realization of universal health care fruitful. For us to do that, then we must have policies that are pro-primary health care. So when you see that appointments are made, be it acting capacity, we know that nobody is ever substantive in the Ministry of Health. The DG has been acting since, I think, 10 years ago. Was it 10 years ago?
4 years.
4 years ago. And he's still acting, and by the way, he's very ungrateful. Because Dr. Ahmed has really worked for this country. He has been recognized outside there even by the WHO, and we continue putting him on acting capacity. Our main problem is you cannot have one homogeneous group, one cadre, with the same experience, same knowledge, same environment of working, and then you bring them to the positions of the policy making. That means that you don't have diversity of ideas. The policies that you are going to make, because of the experience and how this homogeneous group is, of course it will be skewed towards their experience, of which it doesn't take the broad aspect. The cadres that are involved in the primary health care that we are supposed now to use to implement UHC have not been appointed to this policy making table. And so our problem, what we are saying, is that our problem is actually not doctors. We have no problem with doctors. even if, by the way, it was a mortician or a clinic officer and all of them were clinic officers, it would be a problem. But what we want is we must have a diverse group, a mixture of almost all the 32. By the way, we have 32 cadres under the Ministry of Health, different and distinct professions with different knowledge base and experience. And the policies that the Ministry of Health makes goes down to the ground to enable the implementation of services linked to these 32 distinct groups. So we must have a mixture so that any policy that we are making is a policy that is sound, is a policy that is well thought from bringing together different knowledge, different environmental experiences, and we can enrich our policies, and then we'll be able to get on the right trajectory. This is a problem that has not started now. This is not the first time we are complaining about this. It has actually even gone to court. It came with the Health Act, where the Health Act had set aside all the positions for actually one cadre. That was the medical officers only, because they said registered by the medical practitioner, registered by the medical board. And it was challenged by the PSK and Canaan in court. And if probably I can recite the thinking of the judge as he was declaring those provisions null and void and unconstitutional and unreasonable, he said that it is in common knowledge that delivery of the healthcare services to ensure that you get the quality, the affordability, that you can be able to bring it closer to every Kenyan is not a duty of one cadre. It is concerted effort from all the players in the health sector. And so for any law to come and try and give that responsibility to only one cadre to lead the policy decision that will guide implementation of that, the judge termed it to be unreasonable, illogical, and something that is not practical and cannot be supported by law. Now we believe, and as Ms. Kera has said, we believe that the CS has the best interest of health at heart. But we believe that she must have misguided on this. Probably all of the facts were not brought to the table. I know we have been told that these are just acting capacity. The leadership positions in the Ministry of Health have always been on acting capacity. And we actually don't expect that in future we are going to see anybody being confirmed. So we have petitioned. We are also today petitioning the Public Service Commission so that they do not give out letters. And at the expiry of 7 days, we are going to have maandamano, and then we are going to go to court so that we can stop this, because it's a right of every Kenyan to be given equal opportunity. Article 27 of the Kenyan Constitution says that you have an inherent right not to be discriminated under any grounds. And under the Labor Relations Act, Employment Act, it says that discrimination at the workplace is outlawed, and that an employer must take measures to ensure that there is no discrimination at the workplace. And what the ministry is doing now is discriminating all of us, all the others, from getting these positions. And so we are bringing this to the CS so that if it's true that she was actually misadvised, that she can go back and recall, because that is what we are demanding. Recall the positions, advertise them, because fair administration requires that any position you are filling, you must subject it to a transparent and competitive process, so that anybody who qualifies can be able to take up this opportunity, get the position, and be able to contribute to the policies that guide health delivery in this country.
All right, Collins, I saw that the National Nurses Association of Kenya were also signatory to this statement.
Yes, I concur with my brother, Mr. Wachira, and I am a signatory on that, by virtue that I'm the president of the National Nurses Association of Kenya, and also that is the position of the nurses. The Health Act 2017 had got various discriminatory clauses that some of them were expunged following a court ruling where our union went to court, and also the Pharmaceutical Society also went to court of the same. And these three sections, 16, 19, and 33, were found to be very discriminatory against all other health cadres. I want to say that health, being that we are the majority of health workers, we are born the brunt of the health system. Some of us have been having disability because of our work-related issues. Some of us have been affected by even COVID itself. Many nurses died. But coming to the policy-making table, nurses are not there. We feel we have been discriminated, and it's time that the government should hear the plight of other health cadres. I want to say that the ruling was very clear, and the main vision of that Health Act was having a unified health system in place for Kenya, so that we all work as a team. It is a holistic approach in management of a patient. Not only that, a patient requires one cadre to take the patient through, but it needs all of us to be together. I want to say that even the appointment itself, in the Health Act 2014, there was a provision for the Directorate of Nursing. But coming to this appointment, and we had already, I agree with the Honorable Wachira and Dr. Miskela that the CS Health means well. I personally have had the opportunity of meeting her, and she means well. And we even, when we met, we discussed the issue of the Directorate of Nursing. Nobody can speak your story better than us, because we are a unique profession with unique qualities and training. So if we are not on the decision-making table, who is making the policies for the nurses? Because the Director of Nurses, or the Director of Nursing, which is in the Constitution, has been scrapped. It is not there. We don't have a Director of Nursing there. We need this office to be functional, because if it is not functional, then it discriminates the whole nursing profession. It also negates our resolve to work together as a team in various units. Because one team will see that it is a take-it-all society. So one cadre will take all of it and go with it. So it is creating a bad precedent moving forward. Okay. And also it limits the career progression of other health cadres. If you are the highest qualified nurse, who is the Director of Nursing, is in a lower job group, then it means the whole of us will be below her. So why do we now go to school if you cannot progress? Okay. So all health workers needs to be valued. We need to be appreciated for the service that we are doing. So there are two things that we need. We, as nurses, we need the scheme of service. I'm happy the clinical officers has gone through the process, and their scheme of service has been delivered. But the nurses, which are the majority of healthcare workers, we are left with our scheme of service still lying somewhere. We have developed this scheme of service, but it has not been officially approved by the ministry so that it can be used. So even the employment of nurses is still a problem, because we don't know at what entry level the nurses are coming into.
And the second issue, finally? And
yes, and finally, we need we developed the first ever nursing and midwifery policy document, and we hope the first ever nursing and midwifery policy document.
Oh, okay. Midwifery?
Yes.
Okay.
We need the government to adopt it and start implementing this policy document. So we need the scheme of service from the ministry to be released for nurses to start for employment of nurses and recognition of nurses. We need the nursing and midwifery policy document to be brought to be approved and implemented as because it was approved in the last year around May. It has taken 1 year, and we are not seeing that it is being approved. And we need we need the reintroduction of the Directorate of Nursing to take care of nursing issues.
Right, so, and the midwifery nursing and midwifery policy is where? At the Ministry of Health?
Yeah, at the Ministry of Health. It was launched by Dr. Kagwe last year, around 2022 in Malindi.
All right, so Jen, okay, last 30 seconds, Dr. Miskela.
Just to comment on the issues that the cadres in healthcare is like parts of our body. They all do different things, but overall goodness of the body. You'll never hear the leg saying that how comes that only the hand touches food. Because it knows that when the hand touches food and brings to the mouth, it's for the overall goodness of the body. I know that the CS put this team in acting capacity to help craft the policy moving forward. I reached out to some of people in our office and they said that sooner they are going to have the substantive advertisements to ensure that everybody is factored in. Because as a union, as KMPDU, as doctors, we don't believe that the fact that our people are there as doctors, we are going to benefit any different from if a CEO or a nurse was there. So we hope that in the fullness of time, we'll have substantive of its shoulder to ensure there harmony amongst the cadres that are in the health ministry.
All right. I have to end.
One word. We were of the opinion that having a health service commission was something that was going to unify us and was a good thing for us. But if one cadre takes it all, then it negates the spirit of having this health service commission. So we should be clear what we want as health workers.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Now you say that we already have a scheme. We actually don't have a scheme, but I think we are engaging Public Service Commission and we are in high gear to getting a scheme of service.
All right, so I have to end the conversation there. My apologies, Dr. Bethel, but I'll have you guys back to look at some of these CBAs that are being signed. But these are who I have had in studio this morning. Dr. Dennis Miskela Mbega, Deputy Secretary General, KMPDU. Thank you very much for making the time. Peterson Washira, Chair, Kenya Union of Clinical Officers as well. Thank you so very much for being here. Collins Otieno Adjong, President, National Nurses Association of Kenya. Pleasure hosting you. As well as Libea Bethwell, Chair, Advocacy Committee, PSK YPJ. Dr. Bethwell anatafuta kazi. So, and he's a pharmacist, trained for 7 years. So, if you're able to consider him. And this is what we're interrogating. Where does it hurt? Health services, triage, pain of late pay, ministry reorganization. That's it for me. I will see you tomorrow.